It was a very hot afternoon in the city. The sun was bright, and the road was full of noise. Cars were passing, people were shouting, and the smell of street food was in the air. Near the school gate, a small food cart stood under a week-old umbrella. Behind that cart was a thin man with tired eyes and rough hands. He was a street vendor, and his name was Ramesh. He sold simple snacks to earn money for his family. Not far from him, the school bell rang loudly. Children came running out of the gate, laughing and talking. Among them was a quiet boy named Arjun. Arjun was Ramesh's son. He walked slowly, holding his old school bag close to his chest. His shoes were torn from the sides. His shirt was clean but faded from many washes. He tried to hide his shoes by walking carefully. That day was not like other days. It was lunch-sharing day at school. Every student had brought special food from home to share with classmates. Some had pizza, some had cake, and some had colorful sweets. Arjun had nothing special. In fact, his lunchbox was empty. That morning, there was no extra food at home. His father had said softly, "I am sorry, Beta. Today we do not have enough." Arjun had smiled and said, "It's okay, Papa. I am not hungry." But he was hungry. At school, the students sat in groups, opening their lunchboxes proudly. The smell of fresh food filled the classroom. Arjun sat quietly at the back. He pretended to look into his empty lunchbox. He hoped no one would notice, but someone did. Rohan, the richest boy in the class, saw him. Rohan wore shiny shoes and a watch that looked expensive. He always talked loudly and liked attention. He walked toward Arjun with a smile that was not kind. "Hey Arjun," Rohan said loudly. "Why are you hiding your food? Show us what you brought." Some students turned to look. Arjun's hands started shaking. He slowly closed his lunchbox and said, "I did not bring anything special." Rohan laughed. "Of course you didn't," he said. "How can a street seller's son bring anything good?" The class became silent for a second. Then a few students started laughing. Arjun felt his face become hot. He looked down at the floor. Rohan opened his own lunchbox and took out a sandwich. He waved it in front of Arjun. "Do you even know what this is?" he asked. Without waiting for an answer, Rohan suddenly dropped the sandwich on the floor near Arjun's feet. "Maybe this is where you belong," he said, pointing to the ground. The laughter grew louder. Each laugh felt like a sharp stone hitting Arjun's heart. He wanted to run away. He wanted to disappear, but his legs felt heavy. He slowly bent down to pick up the sandwich, not because he wanted to eat it, but because he did not want the classroom helper to blame him for the mess. At that moment, someone was watching from outside the classroom window. It was his father, Ramesh. He had come to give Arjun a bottle of water. He had seen everything. He saw his son bending down. He saw the other children laughing. His hands tightened into fists. His heart was full of pain. He wanted to go inside and shout at everyone. He wanted to tell them that his son was not small, but he stayed quiet. He knew shouting would only make things worse for Arjun. So he stood there, silent, with tears in his eyes. Arjun picked up the sandwich and threw it into the dustbin. He returned to his seat without saying a word. But inside him, something was changing, something was breaking, and something was also being born. That day, when school ended, Arjun walked out slowly. He saw his father standing near the cart. Their eyes met. No words were needed. His father placed his hand gently on Arjun's head. "I am proud of you," he said softly. Arjun nodded, but he did not smile. That night, Arjun could not sleep. He kept hearing the laughter in his ears. He kept seeing the sandwich falling to the ground. He looked at his torn shoes lying near the door. Tears rolled down his cheeks, but then he wiped them away. He sat up and looked at his school books. In that small dark room, under a weak yellow bulb, Arjun made a promise to himself. One day he would change his life. One day, no one would laugh at him or his father. One day he would stand tall. He did not know how. He did not know when. But he knew he would never forget this day. The day he was humiliated. The day his father silently watched. The day a small, quiet boy decided to fight back. Not with anger, but with success. Before the sun rose, before the city opened its eyes, Arjun was already awake. The sky was still dark blue, and the air was cold. Most children his age were sleeping in warm beds. But Arjun was helping his father push their old wooden cart through the silent streets. The wheels of the cart made a slow, crying sound. Ramesh pushed from the back and Arjun pulled from the front. They did this every morning. This was their life. The cart was not just wood and metal. It was their kitchen, their shop, their hope. Ramesh sold tea and simple snacks, bread with butter, boiled eggs, and small fried items. The profit was small. Some days were good. Some days they returned home with almost nothing. But Ramesh never complained. He only said one thing again and again. As long as we are honest, we are rich in heart. Arjun listened carefully every time. After setting up the cart, Arjun quickly washed his hands at a nearby tap. Then he ran to school. He often reached just before the bell rang. His shoes were still old. His bag was still heavy with secondhand books. But something inside him was different now. After the humiliation he faced, a quiet fire had started burning in his heart. He no longer felt only shame. He felt purpose. At school, some students still laughed at him. Some whispered when he walked past. But Arjun stopped reacting. He spoke less and observed more. He noticed how teachers explained lessons. He listened to every word like it was gold. When other students wasted time, he read his notes again. When they joked, he solved math problems. When they went to expensive coaching classes, he stayed back and asked teachers questions. Many teachers saw his effort. One teacher, Mrs. Sharma, once stopped him after class. "Arjun, why do you study so hard?" she asked kindly. Arjun looked down and said softly, "Because this is my only way out." Mrs. Sharma understood. From that day, she sometimes gave him extra books. Old books from her own son. Arjun treated those books like treasure. After school, while other children played games, Arjun returned to the street. He stood beside his father, serving customers. 2 teas, someone would shout. 3 bread packets, another would say. Arjun moved quickly. He learned how to talk politely. He learned how to handle angry customers. He learned how to count money fast without making mistakes. The street was a tough teacher. It did not give marks. It gave lessons. Some people respected them. Some treated them badly. Some threw coins on the cart instead of placing them in his hand. Each small insult hurt, but each day also made him stronger. At night, when the city lights turned on, Arjun sat under a street lamp near their home. Electricity in their small room was weak and often went out, so the street light became his study partner. Mosquitoes flew around him. Cars passed. Noise filled the air. But Arjun focused only on his books. Sometimes his eyes closed from tiredness. Sometimes his stomach growled from hunger. But he kept reading. Ramesh would watch from the door quietly. He never studied in his own childhood. He started working when he was very young. He did not want the same life for his son. One night, Ramesh sat beside Arjun and said, "Beta, if you ever feel tired, you can stop helping me and focus only on school." Arjun shook his head. "No, Papa. This cart is ours. I will not leave you alone." Ramesh smiled, but his eyes became wet. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. Slowly, Arjun's marks started improving. He stood first in class one time. Some students were shocked. Rohan was especially angry. "How can he beat me?" Rohan complained to his friends. But Arjun did not celebrate loudly. He simply went home and showed his report card to his father. Ramesh held the paper with shaking hands. "This is better than any money," he said proudly. Still, life was not easy. There were days when rain destroyed their food. There were days when police asked them to move from their spot. There were days when they had no customers at all. On such days, Arjun felt fear. What if he could not continue school? What if money finished? But every time fear came, he remembered that classroom. He remembered the laughter, and instead of breaking him, the memory pushed him forward. He started dreaming bigger. He began reading about successful people. He learned new English words daily. He practiced speaking in front of a mirror. He imagined himself in an office one day, wearing clean clothes, sitting on a chair with confidence. But he never forgot the street. The street was his reality. It was also his teacher. And deep inside, Arjun promised himself something else. If he ever became successful, he would not forget people like his father. He would not look down on anyone, because he knew the pain of being looked down on. The world saw only a street vendor's son. While Arjun was waking up before sunrise to push a wooden cart, Rohan was waking up in a soft bed inside a large air-conditioned room. His curtains were thick and expensive, blocking the morning light. A servant gently knocked on his door every day at 7. "Good morning, sir." The servant would say politely. Rohan would stretch lazily and check his phone before even getting out of bed. His life was smooth, comfortable, and easy. He never worried about money. He never worried about food. He never worried about tomorrow. Downstairs, a big dining table was always full of fresh fruits, juice, bread, and hot dishes. His mother often reminded him, "Finish your breakfast, beta." But Rohan sometimes left the table half-eaten. He did not know the value of food. He never had to. His father was a powerful businessman. He owned factories, buildings, and many cars. People spoke to him with respect and fear. Rohan grew up watching this power. Slowly, he started believing that money meant superiority. At school, Rohan was popular. He wore the best clothes. He had the latest gadgets. Other students surrounded him because he spent money easily. He paid for movie tickets. He bought expensive snacks for friends. He enjoyed attention. He enjoyed being seen as important. The day he humiliated Arjun was just a small moment for him. He laughed, went home, and forgot about it. For Rohan, it was a joke. For Arjun, it was a wound. Years passed. School ended. Rohan joined a top college without much struggle. His father's money opened doors easily. While others prepared day and night for entrance exams, Rohan entered through comfort and connections. He did not feel guilty. He believed this was normal. In college, he lived in a private apartment. He had parties almost every weekend. Music, lights, laughter. He liked fast cars and late nights. He liked showing people that he was rich. When someone praised him, he smiled proudly. When someone criticized him, he ignored them. He never learned how to lose, because he never truly faced loss. Meanwhile, his father slowly started giving him small roles in the company. "Come to the office," his father said one day. "It is time you learn business." Rohan agreed confidently. He wore expensive suits and walked into the office like he owned the world. Employees greeted him respectfully, but many of them were more experienced and more skilled than him. Rohan did not notice that. He believed leadership came from family name, not effort. He signed papers without reading carefully. He made decisions quickly without studying the risks. When projects failed, he blamed managers. When profits dropped, he blamed the market. He never blamed himself. His father watched quietly at first. He hoped his son would grow serious with time. But comfort is dangerous when it lasts too long. Rohan had never struggled, so he never built patience. He had never faced insult, so he never built empathy. He had never been hungry, so he never understood value. One evening, during a business meeting, an old employee suggested a safer investment plan. Rohan laughed lightly and said, "Old ideas do not work in the modern world." He ignored the advice and chose a risky project. At first, everything looked successful. Money flowed in quickly. Rohan felt proud. He told his friends, "See, business is simple." But business is never simple. A sudden market crash came. Investments failed. Losses grew larger each month. His father's face became serious. Meetings became tense. For the first time, Rohan felt pressure. Real pressure. Bank calls started coming. Investors asked hard questions. Some partners slowly stepped away. The company that once stood strong began to shake. At night, Rohan could not sleep peacefully anymore. He stared at the ceiling of his big room. The silence felt heavier than noise. He remembered how he once laughed at people who struggled, but he pushed that memory away. His ego was still strong. He told himself, "This is temporary. I will fix everything." But fixing problems needs experience and humility, two things he never fully learned. His father's health also started to suffer from stress. Doctors advised rest. Suddenly, responsibility fell fully on Rohan's shoulders. The same boy who once mocked a street vendor's son was now facing storms he did not understand. For the first time in his life, money was not enough. Connections were not enough. Confidence was not enough. He needed wisdom. He needed patience. He needed character. And deep inside, fear slowly replaced pride. But he still did not know that destiny was quietly preparing a meeting that would remind him of a forgotten classroom, a meeting that would bring him face to face with the boy he once insulted. The wealthy kid who believed life was easy was about to learn the hardest lesson of his life. Failure did not knock on Arjun's door once. It knocked again and again, and every time it came, it tested his patience. After finishing school with good marks, Arjun wanted to study business in college. But college fees were high, very high. Ramesh counted his savings many times at night. The small metal box under his bed had only a few notes inside. It was not enough. One evening, Ramesh said softly, "Beta, maybe you can take a small job first and study later." Arjun looked at his father's tired face. For a moment, his heart felt heavy, but then he smiled. "Papa, I will do both," he said with quiet confidence, and that is exactly what he did. During the day, Arjun attended college classes. At night, he worked. Sometimes he delivered food on a bicycle. Sometimes he worked at a small shop arranging items on shelves. Sometimes he helped his father at the cart until midnight. Sleep became short. Rest became rare. But his dream stayed strong. College was not easy. Many students came from rich families. They spoke fluent English. They wore branded clothes. They discussed foreign trips and big plans. Arjun often stayed silent, not because he had nothing to say, but because he was still learning how to say it. In the beginning, he struggled with English presentations. Once, during a class presentation, his hands shook. Some students laughed quietly at his pronunciation. The old memory of humiliation tried to return. But this time, Arjun did not break. He finished his presentation slowly, even if his voice was not perfect. That night, instead of crying, he stood in front of a mirror. He practiced speaking again and again. He watched free videos online to improve his skills. He wrote new words in a notebook and repeated them daily. Step by step, he improved. But real change came during his final year in college. One day, while helping his father at the cart, he noticed something. Many street vendors around them were struggling. Some did not know how to attract customers. Some wasted food because they could not predict sales. Some borrowed money at high interest. Arjun started thinking deeply. What if small vendors had better systems? What if they could grow like big businesses? That idea stayed in his mind. He began researching small business management. He studied marketing. He learned about cost control. He observed customer behavior on the street. Slowly, an idea started forming. After graduation, instead of searching for a big corporate job, Arjun made a bold decision. He decided to start his own small company. His father was worried. "Are you sure, Beta? A stable job is safer." Arjun replied calmly, "Papa, if I do not try, I will always regret it." With very little money, Arjun rented a tiny office room. It had one table, 2 plastic chairs, and an old fan. That was his beginning. He created a simple service to help street vendors manage their daily sales and supplies better. At first, no one trusted him. Some vendors said, "We have been doing this for years. What can you teach us?" Some laughed at his idea. He faced rejection again and again. There were days when not a single person agreed to try his service. Money became tight, rent was due, bills were waiting. One night, sitting alone in his small office, Arjun felt fear. What if I fail? The question was loud in his mind. For a few seconds, he thought about giving up. Then he remembered his father's silent tears outside that classroom. He remembered the sandwich falling to the floor. He remembered the promise he made under the weak yellow bulb. And slowly, his fear turned into determination. Instead of quitting, he improved his idea. He listened carefully to vendors' problems. He adjusted his service to match their needs. He offered free trials. He worked extra hours without pay. Little by little, a few vendors started seeing results. Their sales improved. Their waste reduced. Word began to spread. Talk to that young man. He has smart ideas. Months passed. His small office became slightly busier. He hired one assistant, then another. The company was still small, but it was alive. Alive with hope. Alive with purpose. For the first time, Arjun felt that his struggle was creating something meaningful. He was not just earning money. He was solving problems. And one evening, while standing beside his father's cart, watching customers smile, Arjun realized something powerful. The humiliation he once faced was no longer a wound. It had become fuel. Fuel that pushed him forward. Fuel that shaped his character. Fuel that built his future. The turning point was not one big moment. It was many small decisions. To not quit. To not blame. To not lose hope. The street vendor's son was no longer just surviving. He was building something bigger than himself. 20 years can change many things. Buildings grow taller. Children become adults. Small dreams either die or become reality. And on a bright Monday morning, inside a glass building in the center of the city, Arjun stood near a large window, looking down at the busy streets below, the same kind of streets where he once pushed his father's cart. But today, he was not standing beside a wooden cart. He was standing inside the headquarters of his own company. The office was modern and clean. Employees walked confidently with files and laptops. Phones rang softly. Meetings were happening in different rooms. And on the wall behind the reception desk was the company name in bold letters. Arjun had built it from nothing, step by step, failure by failure, lesson by lesson. His company now helped thousands of small street vendors across the country. It gave them tools to manage money, reduce waste, and grow their small businesses. Many vendors who once struggled were now stable and proud. Some even sent their children to good schools. Every time Arjun heard such stories, his heart felt full. But success had not changed his simple habits. He still woke up early. He still visited street markets, sometimes to talk directly with vendors. He still respected every worker in his office. That morning, his assistant knocked on the glass door of his cabin. "Sir, we received a request for a partnership meeting," she said. Arjun nodded calmly. "From which company?" he asked. She handed him the file. When Arjun read the company name, his fingers stopped moving. His eyes became still. The name was very familiar. It was Rohan's family company, the same company that once stood strong and powerful. Now it was facing heavy losses. Poor investments and bad decisions had damaged its position in the market. Investors were leaving. Debts were rising. And now, they were seeking partnership with Arjun's company to survive. For a moment, time felt strange, like the past and present were standing in the same room. Arjun leaned back in his chair. He remembered a hot afternoon in a classroom. He remembered laughter. He remembered a sandwich falling to the ground. He closed the file slowly. "Schedule the meeting," he said in a steady voice. 2 days later, the meeting room was prepared. The long table shined under bright lights. Water glasses were placed neatly. Documents were ready. Senior managers from Arjun's company sat confidently. The glass door opened, and Rohan walked in. He was older now. His hair was slightly gray near the sides. His face looked tired. The confidence he once showed in school was softer now. Life had clearly tested him. At first, Rohan did not recognize Arjun. Why would he? In his memory, Arjun was just a quiet boy with torn shoes, not the owner of a growing company, not the man sitting at the head of the table. The meeting began formally. Rohan spoke about market challenges, about financial pressure, about the need for collaboration. His tone was serious, less proud, more careful. Then Arjun spoke, calm, clear, and confident. When he introduced himself fully, Rohan's eyes widened slightly. For a second, silence filled the room. Memories rushed back into Rohan's mind. The classroom, the laughter, the insult, the sandwich. He looked at Arjun again, as if trying to connect the past with the present. The street vendor's son was now sitting in power, and Rohan was asking for support. Life had quietly turned the tables, but Arjun's face showed no anger, no pride, only professionalism. The discussion continued. Numbers were shared. Plans were explained. But inside Rohan, emotions were moving. He remembered how easily he once judged someone by clothes, by background, by money, and now he was sitting across from the very person he once insulted, needing his help. The meeting ended with a promise to review partnership terms. As everyone stood up, Rohan hesitated for a moment. He looked at Arjun and said softly, "Can we talk privately?" Arjun paused, then nodded. The room slowly emptied, leaving just the two of them inside. The air felt heavier than before. Outside the glass walls, employees continued working, unaware that inside this room, 20 years of history were standing face to face. Success had given Arjun power. Failure had given Rohan humility. And in that quiet moment, the past was no longer just a memory. It was a lesson waiting to be answered. The glass door closed softly behind them. The meeting room, once full of voices, was now silent. Only the sound of the air conditioner could be heard. Arjun stood near the window, calm and steady. Rohan remained near the table, his hands slightly shaking. For the first time in his life, Rohan did not know how to begin. The powerful businessman's son, who once spoke without thinking, was now searching for words. Arjun turned slowly and looked at him, not with anger, not with pride, just with quiet strength. Rohan took a deep breath. "You are Arjun, right?" he asked softly. Arjun nodded. "Yes," he replied simply. The name felt heavier in the air than before. Rohan gave a weak smile. "I did not recognize you at first," he said. "A lot has changed." Arjun looked at him calmly. "Yes, a lot has changed," he said. Silence returned for a moment. Rohan's eyes moved down to the floor, as if he could see a memory lying there. A sandwich on a classroom floor. Laughter in the background. A boy bending down quietly. "I remember school," Rohan said slowly. His voice was no longer proud. It was softer, almost ashamed. "I remember how I behaved." The words were difficult for him to say. Arjun did not interrupt. He let him speak. Rohan continued. "I was young, careless, and full of ego. I thought money made me better. I did not understand how much my words could hurt." For the first time, Rohan looked directly into Arjun's eyes. "I am sorry," he said honestly. The apology was not loud. It was not dramatic, but it was real. Arjun felt many emotions rise inside him. Pain from the past, memories of his father standing outside the classroom, nights under the streetlight, days of hunger and struggle. He had imagined this moment many times before. He had imagined saying strong words. He had imagined showing his power. He had imagined making Rohan feel small. But now that the moment was here, revenge did not feel powerful, felt empty. Arjun walked slowly toward the table and sat down. He folded his hands calmly. "Rohan," he said in a steady voice, "do you know what hurt the most that day?" Rohan shook his head slowly. It was not the laughter, Arjun continued. It was not even the sandwich. It was seeing my father watching silently from outside. Rohan's face tightened with guilt. I did not know he was there, he whispered. Arjun nodded. He was. And he did not say a word, because he did not want to make things worse for me. The room felt heavy with emotion. But that day also gave me something, Arjun said. It gave me fire. It gave me direction. It made me promise myself that I would change my life. Rohan listened carefully. For the first time, he was not the center of attention. He was a student learning a hard lesson. I faced many failures, Arjun continued. I was rejected many times. I worked day and night, and every time I felt weak, I remembered that day. Rohan swallowed slowly. I wish I could go back and change it, he said. Arjun gave a small, thoughtful smile. We cannot change the past, he replied. But we can choose what kind of people we become because of it. Those words stayed in the air, clear and strong. Rohan looked different now, less proud, more human. I made many mistakes in business too, Rohan admitted. I did not listen. I did not respect advice. I thought success was easy. But now everything is falling apart. His voice broke slightly at the last sentence. For a moment, he was not a wealthy businessman. He was just a man who had finally understood his limits. Arjun studied his face carefully. He saw regret. He saw fear. But he also saw honesty. This was the true turning point, not just for business, but for character. Arjun leaned back in his chair. I have the power to reject this partnership, he said calmly. I have the power to watch your company fall. Rohan lowered his eyes. I know, he replied quietly. But Arjun continued, power is not about hurting someone who once hurt you. Power is about choosing better. Rohan slowly looked up, surprised. Arjun's voice was firm but kind. I will consider helping your company, he said. But not because you need help, and not because of the past. I will do it only if your company agrees to support small vendors, treat workers with respect, and build honestly. Rohan listened carefully. This was not revenge. This was leadership. I agree, Rohan said immediately. No, not just because I need this deal, he added quickly, but because I finally understand. The silence that followed was no longer heavy, felt lighter, like something painful had finally been released. 20 years ago, one boy stood embarrassed in a classroom. Today, that same boy sat with dignity and grace. The moment of truth had arrived, and instead of choosing revenge, Arjun chose strength with kindness.